Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our today's office hour on California's BEAD sub-grantee selection process. My name is Ali Eshraghi, and I serve as a program and project supervisor for the BEAD program here at the California Public Utilities Commission, CPUC. I'm joined today by my colleagues from the CPUC and CCC Technology and Energy, and they will introduce themselves as we go through your questions. If you can have the slides up and go to the agenda slide. Thank you. So here's the agenda for today's session. We have started with a brief welcome and some housekeeping notes. This includes an overview of how to navigate the Zoom interface and the scope of this office hour. We'll then move on to the main segment where we'll address your questions and provide answers we can. And if we need to take some of your questions back, we'll do that and include them in the FAQ document. And then finally, we'll wrap up by outlining next steps and sharing some important reminders. Next slide. Thank you. So let's cover the guidelines for participating in today's Q&A session. To ask a question, please write your question in the chat and wait to be called on before speaking. Keep yourself on mute until it's your turn to speak. If you are called upon to clarify any parts of your question, please provide the clarification in the chat afterward. This helps us accurately capture your input for inclusion in our FAQ document. We'll start with the first round of questions, giving everyone a chance to ask one question. Please avoid multi-part questions during this round. After the initial round, if time allows, we open the floor to additional questions. If you would like to follow up on someone else's question, please write it in the chat and wait to be called upon. Next slide. Here is some information to guide today's session. This session is focused on questions about the sub-grantee selection process, specifically the topics covered in our previous webinars. Several aspects of the BEAD program are still being finalized. Some questions may need to be addressed in a future session or in the FAQ document. Just as a reminder, there will be questions that we might not be able to provide comprehensive answer during this session. We will take those questions back, review them, and include the responses in our FAQ document. We have published 2 versions of FAQ document and planning to update that regularly as we get questions through this webinar, office hour, or through our email boxes. If you have questions about the challenge process, please email them to the bead@cpuc.ca.gov. This session is focused on the sub-grantee selection process, and we may not have the right folks on the call to address challenge-related questions. As a reminder, the CPUC is required to follow the rules established by the NTIA, which administers the BEAD program. Again, as mentioned earlier, the questions and answers from today's meeting will be posted in the updated FAQ document and will be posted to our website. Additionally, we are recording this session, and the recording will also be made available on our website. Thank you for joining us today. Before we start the Q&A part, I pass it to Jonathan Lakritz, our program manager, for some notes and updates.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending our frequently asked questions. So we anticipate that there are some questions that we're likely going to receive during these office hours, and to not sound repetitive as we answer the questions, perhaps from multiple individuals, I want to share some information and responses to frequently asked questions that we're receiving through our email inbox. So our timeline, our provisional timeline, is up on our website. And note that it's subject to modification, consistent with changes that NTIA may require us to do, or as we sort of move through the process. Right now, we are scheduled to open our sub-grantee pre-qualification period and grant application window on March 25th, 2025. As a reminder, we will be using a web-based grant management tool, and that will be the only way to submit an application to the program. And that's the way that we will also be communicating back to applicants for any additional information we may need for them or any corrections or curing we may ask for. We anticipate by mid-March releasing application materials. These will be informational only, but they will basically be the questions that will be in the portal, along with some drafts of guides that we're preparing to aid in that process. We received questions during the last 2 office hours and online about questions about what does the end of the pre-qualification period mean. We will be addressing that with some communication in the next week or 2. So we're not prepared to address that today. Also wanted to remind applicants and others that we have received multiple questions about. Their questions fall sort of 2 varieties. One is there's been updates to the FCC Fabric or NTIA availability information, and or individuals have concerns about the accuracy of the Fabric. I guess a third category is that ISPs have built facilities that are not reflected on the current approved beta challenge map that's been posted on our website. So as we discussed at our last office hours, we will be going through an NTIA mandated reconciliation process at the end of this process, after we've conducted the subgrantee selection process, to make sure that we are not either funding locations that already have service at it or funding locations that are subject to other enforceable commitments. We'll present more information as we get closer to that date about how ISPs can participate in that process with regards to that. If there are questions that ISPs or others have about the accuracy of the underlying FCC information, some people have suggested that BSLs are not real locations, they perhaps are rocks or other structures. Those need to be addressed by working through the FCC's process to update the national broadband map. We're not able to make those changes in this process. We accept the Fabric as it's been delivered to us. And the last thing I want to highlight is that as we are preparing the application and pre-qualification materials to be released in mid-March, we're not going to be having office hours next week to provide more time for us to prepare those materials so we can get them out to you all as soon as we can.
Thank you, Jonathan. So now let's dive into the Q&A session. I can go through the first question and I'll ask Jonathan to provide input. Do we need to exclude eligible locations that were part of the FFA grant program?
The short answer is that yes, you will need to do that. We will be, when we launch the grant application window, we'll be providing an update to the challenge map that's currently on our website that will be reflective of most, but not all of the FFA grant locations. There are some that are being considered by the commission at commission meetings in February that were after a cutoff date for updating our map. But the short answer is that yes, but there'll be tools that will make it relatively straightforward to identify which BSLs are subject to a current or subject to a current FFA grant.
The next question, could you provide an update on when the CPUC plans to release specific funding allocations for each census block group under the BEAD program? So I passed this to Ziggy. Basically, we are not releasing any funding allocation for each census block group. We are defining area budget as part of the application review. So Ziggy, if you can provide a general overview of that.
Yeah, Ali is exactly correct. We're not providing any funding allocations. We do dynamically calculate the available budget for each census block group or PAU as the applications are coming in, and we have real data to work with in addition to reference pricing data that we and other data that we use for this. And we've outlined that in IPv2 as well, if you'd like to take a look at that as well.
Thank you, Ziggy. So moving on to the next question, will we need to submit our cybersecurity and supply plan risk management at the time of the application or at the time of the award? This is part of the pre-qualification application question. Ziggy, do you want to provide?
Sure.
Thanks.
If I remember correctly, the questions in the application is if you have one currently or you'll have one at the time of the award. So you'll have to have one, but you don't have to submit it at the time of the application.
So the next question, as part of the project application costs, are pre-application expenses allowable? If so, is the cap set at $100,000 for pre-application expenses? I'm not sure if I know exactly what pre-application expenses are, but Ziggy or Jonathan, do you have any input, or we can ask?
Yeah.
Or go ahead.
There are certain specific expenses that are allowable under NTIA rules that are pre-application. Not all, but I should say that the actual application preparation expenses are not an allowable expense. These are expenses that you would have incurred in the project and would have been allowable as part of the project. So a typical costs that would be allowable would be any kind of engineering or other work that you would do to prepare yourself for an environmental assessment, for example. And we can provide more information in a future frequently asked question answer.
As a reminder for those who joined a few minutes after we have started, please type your question in the chat and we'll go through them in order. So Ziggy, there is a follow-up question in terms of cybersecurity and supply plan risk management. Just wanted to clarify if they need, again, basically, if you can repeat your answer in terms of.
I believe so. Yeah, I need to check, but I believe so. Yeah. But you know, I stand to be corrected if this is not right. But I am pretty certain that the requirement is for it to be available, for it to be available for us to see at the time of award. But you have to certify that you'll have it, or you. And if you have it already now, of course, you can upload it.
So the next question is whether to expand, whether we have decided to expand on the checklist on the website to give more details on what specifically we need to prepare for the pre-qualification. For example, will the past performance be a narrative? Will there be a page character limit? So a quick update, we are updating the checklist. But as Jonathan mentioned at the beginning of this call, we are planning to release the application material for information as PDF by mid-March. So all these questions and information about what needs to be included in pre-qualification versus application are going to be described in those documents. So the next one, I'm not sure if I know exactly what is the question. Only 6 remaining counties for round 2, and they listed the counties. if you can clarify what is your question. Moving on to the next one, would you repeat the email address regarding questions related to post-BEAT challenge map? It's beat@cpuc.ca.gov, and it's on basically that's our general email, and it's on the slides that we post on our website. Is pre-qualification required? Yes, that's part of the application process. Basically, the information that every applicant needs to provide, and it's not project specific. We are separating those, so applicants only need to submit those once. Are there any caps on certain costs beside the 2% for administrative costs, percentage based? Ziggy?
No, but the expenses must be eligible. They must conform to BABA, Buy American provisions, etc. But no, not in terms of percentage-based limits or caps.
Thank you. Is there a possibility the timeline for submission will be extended beyond 30 days? Jonathan, do you want to?
Absolutely. We have set the schedule based upon the requirement that we have to submit our final proposal to NTIA on or before October 2nd, 2025. So based upon that endpoint goal and the number of steps that we need to conduct to be compliant with both our IPv2 and the NOFO, I do not anticipate and strongly believe that we will keep the application deadline to the 30 days. So the short answer is no, I don't anticipate there's much possibility of an extension. Of course, NTIA could choose to issue different rules about the process that may necessitate or permit an extension, but I have no knowledge of that at this point in time.
So the next question is about CBG and whether they would be able. There is a possibility for a CBG location that spans across a large mountain range where there are two communities separated by a long distance. Is there any way to split that into a separate application for the community on one side of the mountain? The separation of the locations make it impractical to serve both sides for one project. So the short answer is no. As the IPv2 describes, the minimum size for a project area unit that applicant can design is a CBG. But Sigi or Jonathan, do you want to provide any other insight into this based on the specific situation that they're explaining?
No, I think that's right. There, with the caveat, of course, is that you do have the option for 90% coverage proposals. So if it turns out, and I assume that that's not the case here, but if it turns out that it's only a small community on the other side of the mountain, and that will add up to 10% or less, then you may be able to do that, but otherwise, no. And I don't know if there's a way to get around that mountain to create a contiguous project area, but this is the way it is.
And as a general reminder, when you submit a question in the chat, please send it to everyone so everyone can see the questions. This helps us to make sure both we answered properly here as well as we capture for our FAQ document.
Hey, gentlemen, Guillermo Duran here. Just a quick question. I was the one that asked about the counties, because there was a communication that was sent out last mile federal funding account that there was only 6 counties left for round 2. So I just want to make sure that's still accurate.
This is the BEAT program. I don't know if I don't think we have the right folks on this call to answer that. I think you're asking about the FFA program.
Yes, okay, got it. I thought it was okay. Thank you so much.
Sure, thanks. So we can wait a few more minutes to see if there are any other questions. If not, we can wrap up early. You give it another minute. So the next one says probably can't address this topic, but is the CPUC concerned about the BEAD funding being pulled or deferred? I don't think there is any updates or anything related to that from the NTIA. So the program is moving as it was planned. Okay. So let's have the slides up so we can go through the wrapping up slides. Thank you. So again, if you haven't already, please sign up to receive email updates about the BEAD program. As mentioned, for questions about the BEAD sub-grant selection process, email beadgrant@cpuc.ca.gov, and for other inquiries about the BEAD program in California in general or challenge-related questions, please email them to bead@cpuc.ca.gov. As mentioned earlier, we have posted the FAQ document, 2 versions of that. The third version, third update is going to be published in the next couple of weeks with additional questions that we have received through this office hour and through our email boxes. Next slide. As you have seen, we over the last few months, as well as over the next few months, we continue with our webinars and office hours on Tuesday and Thursdays, 1 to 2 p.m. In terms of the webinars, please check the website for the upcoming webinars, and we announce the timing as well as the topic. As Jonathan mentioned at the beginning of this office hour, next week we are not going to have office hour. We are working to finalize the application material and publish them, so you can have access to those, and we will have webinar and office hours afterwards to answer your questions and go through the materials. So these webinars and office hours are open to anyone interested in attending. Registration link will be available on the BEAD event page. That's for the webinar. The office hour, basically there's one link. If you have registered that, you have the access for the upcoming office hours. These sessions provide an open forum for stakeholders to ask specific questions, seek clarification, and receive guidance on the BEAD application process. The stakeholders are encouraged to attend these sessions to fully understand the requirements and opportunities provided through the BEAD program. These events are designed to promote transparency, collaboration, and success for all potential sub-grantees. Thank you for your participation and engagement today. Have a great afternoon.